Destruction All-Stars is a car combat game in the vein of Destruction Derby and Twisted Metal, but it ditches the more realistic or gritty tone of those games in favour of a more cartoony art style, and offers the new gimmick of being able to leave your car at any time to run around on foot and hijack other vehicles. Car combat isn't a genre that we see all that often anymore, so Destruction All-Stars had the potential to really carve out its own niche in the market. But unfortunately, I just don't see Destruction All-Stars keeping the attention of most players for more than a few hours. Because while Destruction All-Stars is a lot of fun to play, it's held back by its limited selection of modes, some invasive microtransactions, and a lack of any real hook to keep you coming back. While I'd definitely say Destruction All-Stars is worth a shot while it's free on PS Plus, I certainly couldn't recommend anyone pay full price for it. Let's start off with the gameplay, as I think that the moment-to-moment gameplay is actually very good, and easily the best part of Destruction All-Stars. The actual act of driving around in Destruction All-Stars feels great, cars control well, and smashing into other vehicles is as satisfying as you'd hope, as there's just the right amount of feedback when crashing into things. The on-foot gameplay also feels a lot more fluid than I expected, allowing you to smoothly parkour around the arena when in search of new vehicles. Being on foot also allows you to hijack other players' vehicles, which is a very fun mechanic. The player attempting to hijack a vehicle has to input a series of button prompts that pop up on the screen, while the person in the vehicle has to rapidly shake the thumbstick to knock the hijacker off the vehicle. If you successfully hijack a vehicle, you'll then be able to choose between taking the car for yourself or destroying it. Jumping over a car that's attempting to run you down and then successfully hijacking it from midair always feels rewarding no matter how many times you've done it. The way you're constantly alternating between in-vehicle and on-foot gameplay makes Destruction All-Stars feel pretty novel, setting it apart from other games in the genre. Destruction All-Stars packs a pretty expansive selection of drivers with 16 All-Stars in the game at launch. Each All-Star has their own unique vehicle with a special ability which is known as a breaker. There's a breaker gauge at the bottom of the screen that fills up as you deal damage to opponents. Pressing R1 when the gauge is full summons your character's unique vehicle, so you can use their breaker ability. The abilities of different All-Stars are surprisingly varied, with different breakers including super speed, shields, trails of fire that are left behind your car, or coating an enemy vehicle in smoke to hamper their vision. You also get a separate breaker that can be activated while on foot. This breaker boosts your speed, making you more mobile, so you can avoid cars more easily. The meat of Destruction All-Stars is its online multiplayer component. When playing online, you'll have the choice of 4 different modes. Mayhem, which is your standard free-for-all, where you're trying to destroy as many enemy vehicles as possible in a limited amount of time. Gridfall, a mode where chunks of the ground fall away over time, and you'll have to be the last one standing by knocking opponents into the holes in the ground to get more lives. Stockpile, which is basically a team-based capture the flag mode, where destroying opponents' vehicles causes them to explode into gears that can be deposited in one of 3 points, with the team that banks the most gears in a point controlling it, with whichever team controls 2 out of 3 points when time runs out being the winners. And my personal favourite, Carnado, a team game where you store up points from destroying enemy vehicles, then bank those points by driving your car into the tornado at the centre of the stage. This destroys your car, leaving you to find a new one to start racking up points again. I really liked Carnado, and it was my go-to mode, as I really enjoyed the risk versus reward element, weighing up if you wanted to bank your points and have them safely deposited, or push on a little longer to try and gather more points, knowing that if you mess up, your vehicle will be destroyed and you'll end up with no points. The fact that there are only 4 modes does mean that they can grow stale quite quickly, and the very limited selection of maps certainly doesn't help with the game's repetitious nature. The single-player content is where Destruction All-Stars really starts to fall apart for me. Destruction All-Stars forgoes a traditional story campaign, instead including the Challenge series. The Challenge series consists of a bunch of miniature campaigns where you play through a series of missions as a specific character, with new campaigns being added over time. Challenge series campaigns consist of 7 different matches that either task you with completing a task within a time limit or duking it out against AI opponents. There are even a handful of game types only found in Challenge series. For example, one mode sees you having to smash a certain amount of crates in a limited time, while another has you racing through an obstacle course, with both of these modes having you alternate between on-foot and in-vehicle gameplay on the fly. These missions were some of the most fun I had playing Destruction AllStars, as they do a great job of showcasing the unique mechanics found in the game. So what's the catch with Challenge Series? Well, you only get one AllStars Challenge Series included with the game, with all the other Challenge Series campaigns requiring real-world money to unlock. Locking the vast majority of the single-player content behind a paywall sets Destruction AllStars off on the wrong foot. Putting Destruction AllStars on PS Plus out of the gate was definitely a good call, as I think Sony would have copped a lot of backlash if they released this game as a full-priced launch title like they were originally planning to. But it does mean that for players who don't get this game while it's on PS Plus, Sony will be charging full price for a game riddled with invasive microtransactions. This is the kind of thing you'd expect to see in a free-to-play title, not a game with a AAA price tag. Aside from the Challenge series, the only other thing offered for solo players is to play the multiplayer modes against bots, which would get boring very fast. Something that's fascinating about Destruction AllStars is that it simultaneously implements some of the DualSense's features very well, while implementing others terribly. On the upside, Destruction AllStars makes very good use of the adaptive triggers. I particularly like the way that it uses rumble in the triggers to indicate that your car is damaged, meaning that you don't have to be staring at your life bar constantly. It's nice to see a developer thinking of creative ways to implement the DualSense's features into the core gameplay. On the other hand, Destruction AllStars makes a great argument that including a microphone in every controller was a terrible idea. Booting up an online match often leads to you being bombarded with chatter from people who don't even seem to realise that their microphone is on, meaning you have to constantly mute people. This is exactly why you should go to your settings and set the microphone as off by default as soon as you set up your PS5. When it comes to visuals, Destruction AllStars looks pretty good in motion and runs flawlessly. The art style suits the gameplay nicely, even if its Fortnite-esque aesthetic is something that we've seen a million times over the past few years. It's also worth giving Destruction AllStars some credit for how smoothly its launch seemed to go. I was getting into matches very quickly and never encountered any connectivity issues. Something that struck me as odd in Destruction AllStars is that it features no music whatsoever during gameplay. This is a very strange decision that can make matches feel oddly empty at times. The biggest challenge Destruction AllStars will face is convincing its player base to stick around. Destruction AllStars lacks a hook to keep you coming back. The only real incentive to keep playing is unlocking new cosmetics and emotes, but I have absolutely zero drive to unlock any of these as I have no attachment to this cast of characters. While Destruction AllStars feels great to play, it's simply too bare bones at the moment. This paired with the intrusive microtransactions that lock you out of single player content make Destruction AllStars a pretty average game with very little long-term appeal. Destruction AllStars has potential, but only time will tell if it will grow and evolve into something great or fade away into obscurity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe or leave a comment. You can also find a plethora of other videos on my channel, including my recent reviews of Hitman 3 and Cyber Shadow, and make sure to stay tuned for my upcoming reviews of Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury and Persona 5 Strikers.